The word landed softly. That was the worst part. Not screamed. Not even said in anger. Just dropped between the salad bowl and the crystal salt shaker like a polite afterthought. Honestly, Richard is useless with modern things, Vanessa said, swirling her Sauvignon Blanc. If I didn't handle everything, this house would still look like 1987. The guests laughed. Softly, obligingly. I was sitting at the head of the table. My table. Solid walnut, 12 seats. Custom made in Baton Rouge in March 2021 for $11,400 including delivery. I remember because I paid the invoice myself. Useless. I folded my linen napkin carefully and placed it beside my plate. The china was new, white with a thin platinum rim. Vanessa had chosen it in Dallas last year. $3,200 for a full service. She said, presentation was everything. Don't take it personally, Richard, she added with a smile that never reached her eyes. You're from a different era. From a different era. I am 71, not a steam engine. My son Daniel shifted in his seat, but said nothing. He was carving the rosemary chicken I had bought that morning at Fresh Market. Organic, $38.50. I had paid for the groceries too, as usual. The dining room smelled of lemon polish and roasted garlic. The chandelier above us, Italian Murano glass, $9,800. Cast warm gold light across the navy walls. Vanessa insisted on repainting last summer. I had written a check for $18,600 to cover the interior redesign. Dad doesn't really understand property value appreciation, she continued, speaking to her friends Melissa and Grant. When we moved in, the place was, well, livable, but basic. The house is 4,200 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths. Corner lot in Magnolia Estates. Purchased May 14th, 2019. Price, $650,000. Down payment, $220,000. Paid by me. I remember the wire transfer clearly. 9:17 a.m. The bank clerk, a young man with nervous hands, confirmed the amount twice before pressing enter. I had sold my commercial warehouse 2 months earlier for $1.1 million after taxes. I told myself I was investing in family. Family is a flexible term. Vanessa dabbed her lips with a napkin. If it were up to Richard, we'd still have those awful beige curtains. I cleared my throat. I liked the beige curtains, I said. She laughed. Exactly. More laughter. Daniel finally looked at me. She's joking, Dad. Was she? I have learned that jokes are often rehearsals for truth. The kitchen behind us gleamed. White quartz island, sub-zero refrigerator, Wolf Range. Total renovation cost, $74,380. I still have the contractor's invoice dated September 3rd, 2022. Vanessa designed every inch of it. I financed every inch of it. My monthly mortgage payment on the house is $3,842.16. Auto-drafted on the 1st of every month from my Gulf Coast savings account. Daniel once promised to take over soon. That was 3 years ago. He handles the Wi-Fi password. I handle the property taxes. $11,240 last year. Honestly, Vanessa continued, leaning back in her chair, retirement must be nice. No responsibilities. No pressure. Just puttering around. Puttering. For 42 years, I ran Cunningham Industrial Supply. Steel fittings, hydraulic valves. Shipping contracts across Louisiana and Texas. At my peak in 2008, we cleared $3.4 million in annual revenue. I retired at 68, sold the business for $2.3 million before the market dipped. But yes, now I putter. I felt something rise in my chest then. Not anger exactly. Something denser. A sediment long settled, now stirred. Melissa turned to me kindly. So Richard, what do you do all day? What do I do? I wake at 6:10 a.m. every morning. I make coffee in the old stainless steel percolator Vanessa calls prehistoric. I read the financial pages. I water the magnolias along the driveway. The landscaping redesign cost $26,000, by the way. I paid for that too. And I monitored the accounts. I smiled instead. I stay out of the way. Vanessa raised her glass slightly. See? Self-aware. That did it. Not the insult, the approval. I looked around the room. At the coffered ceilings I financed, at the hardwood floors I selected, at the French doors I signed off on. I watched my son eat at a table I bought in a house titled solely in my name. They think Daniel and Vanessa own this home. I never corrected that assumption. It was easier, cleaner. I told myself I was protecting assets from potential business liabilities when Daniel tried launching his third consulting venture. In truth, perhaps I was protecting something else. Control. Or maybe foresight. After dessert, key lime pie from Antoine's, $42. The guests moved into the living room. Vanessa began explaining her vision for a backyard plunge pool. Estimated cost, $58,000. We'll probably start construction this fall, she said. I sat back in my leather armchair, original, not replaced, because she claims it smells old, and listened to my daughter-in-law plan improvements on property she does not own. Daniel caught my eye briefly. There was something there. Guilt? Fear? Calculation? Later that night, after the guests left and the dishwasher hummed, Bosch 800 series, $1,299. Vanessa stood at the island scrolling through her phone. You really shouldn't take things so personally, she said, without looking up. We're just trying to elevate the house. Elevate. I walked to the hallway closet where I keep the file box. Manila folders. Closing documents. Title deed. Insurance policy declarations. My name sits alone on that deed in bold and different ink. Useless men do not usually own $650,000 houses. I returned to the kitchen. Vanessa, I said calmly, how much did you say the pool would cost? She looked up, surprised by the question. Roughly $60,000. Why? I nodded slowly. No reason, I said. But for the first time since May 14, 2019, I began to calculate not what I had given, but what I might take back. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. The first time Vanessa said the word investment, she was standing in what used to be my breakfast nook. It was June 2020. The pandemic had just thinned the streets, and Magnolia Estates felt like a movie set. Too quiet. Too staged. The air conditioning hummed constantly because she said airflow mattered. She had printed mood boards and taped them to the refrigerator with gold clips. We need to think long-term, she told Daniel, though her eyes kept sliding toward me. This house has potential, but only if we modernize. Modernize is an expensive verb. Back then, the kitchen still had solid oak cabinets, perfectly functional, installed in 2012. I had chosen them with my late wife, Margaret. She liked wood that felt like wood. Vanessa ran her fingers across the cabinet doors, as if they were diseased. These scream foreclosure, she said. Foreclosure. The house had never missed a payment in its life. Daniel stood by the sink, nodding in that vague, agreeable way he has perfected since childhood. He was 43 years old at the time and still nodding. How much are we talking, he asked. Vanessa tapped her iPad. If we do quartz, Waterfall Island, new appliances, custom cabinetry, 70, maybe 80,000. She said it lightly, as if suggesting takeout. Daniel winced. That's a lot. I remember setting my coffee down very carefully. How much exactly? I asked. She smiled at me, patient, indulgent. Well, Richard, it's not an expense. It's an upgrade. Homes in this neighborhood with updated kitchens are selling for at least $720,000. At least. I had purchased a property for $650,000 13 months earlier. Appraisal at the time valued it at $662,000. I do not make impulsive purchases, but I said nothing. 2 weeks later, I signed a contract with Bayou Custom Interiors. $74,380. Deposit required. 40%. On July 2nd, 2020, at 10:03 a.m., I authorized a wire transfer of $29,752. Vanessa hugged Daniel in the driveway when the demolition crew arrived. She did not hug me. The house smelled like drywall dust for weeks. My leather armchair was covered in plastic. Every morning at 6:10, instead of magnolias and coffee, I woke to hammering. Isn't it exciting, she would say. Exciting is watching your grandson take his first steps, not watching men remove perfectly good cabinets. By September, the kitchen gleamed like a surgical theater. White quartz, matte brass fixtures, Sub-Zero refrigerator, $12,000. Wolf 6-burner range, $9,600. Faucet imported from Italy, $1,400 for something that delivers the same water as the old one. At the reveal, Vanessa invited her friends over for champagne. "It's everything I envisioned," she whispered dramatically, running her hand along the island edge. Daniel raised a glass. "To new beginnings." I stood by the pantry and calculated depreciation schedules in my head. That was the first renovation. It did not end there. In February 2021, she decided the staircase railing was builder grade. Replacement: wrought iron balusters, custom wood banister, $18,200. In April, landscaping. She said curb appeal was critical. Magnolia trees repositioned. Stone walkway added. Landscape lighting installed. Total invoice: $26,413. I wrote the check. Every time Daniel would say, "Dad, I'll start contributing more once the consulting firm stabilizes." The consulting firm never stabilized. It pivoted, then rebranded, then quietly dissolved. The mortgage remained stable. $3,842.16. Autodraft. On the first of every month, I receive a confirmation email from Gulf Coast Savings. Payment successful. Daniel does not receive that email. Last year, property taxes increased by 6%. Insurance premiums rose after hurricane season. Utilities average $1,180 per month, largely due to the climate-controlled wine storage Vanessa insisted on installing in the dining room alcove. Installation cost: $14,500. She does not drink red wine. One evening in November 2022, I was reviewing my quarterly statements at the kitchen island, the same island she calls her creative workspace. Vanessa walked in holding fabric samples. "I'm thinking velvet drapes for winter," she said. "The current ones feel temporary." The current ones were custom linen panels. I had paid $8,600 for 8 months prior. "How much are the velvet ones?" I asked without looking up. She shrugged. "Maybe 12,000 installed." 12,000. "For curtains," I said. "For atmosphere," she corrected. I closed the folder slowly. "Vanessa, do you know what the monthly mortgage is?" She blinked. "Daniel handles that." "Daniel does not handle that. It's $3,842.16, I said. "Every month, not including taxes or insurance." She shifted her weight. "Well, we're all benefiting from the house." There is that word again. "Daniel told me he was contributing," she added carefully. I looked at her then. "Has he?" Silence. Brief. Telling. She changed the subject. Later that night, I checked the joint household account Daniel uses for shared expenses. His largest outgoing payment that month was $4,200 for a marketing conference in Miami. Flights and hotel charged to his business card. The house remained my responsibility. And then came the furniture. In March 2023, she replaced the living room set, Italian sectional, glass coffee table, sculptural accent chairs. Total: $31,770. She called it an investment in lifestyle. I called it the line item. What I began to understand, slowly like watching moisture gather before a storm, was not just that I was paying. It was that they had stopped noticing I was paying. Gratitude fades first, then memory, then truth. By the time she called me useless at dinner last week, the total I had invested in renovations and upgrades exceeded $182,000. That is separate from the $220,000 down payment, separate from the $3,842.16 drafted every month for 4 years, separate from taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs. They walk across hardwood floors financed by a man they consider decorative. Useless. The word no longer stung. It clarified. That night, after reviewing the ledger again, I opened a new spreadsheet. Not titled renovations, not titled expenses. I titled it Exit Strategy. The morning after I titled the spreadsheet Exit Strategy, I woke at 5:52 a.m., 16 minutes earlier than usual. I lay there listening to the house breathe, the low hum of the HVAC, the faint ticking of the hallway clock Vanessa replaced because she said the old one sounded anxious. This one ticked softly, discreetly, like guilt. I made coffee in the stainless steel percolator she hates. The smell is sharper than those capsule machines. Honest, it fills the kitchen before the sun does. At 6:20 a.m., I opened my laptop. I began with numbers. Purchase price, $650,000. Down payment, $220,000. Mortgage principal remaining as of last statement, $388,417. Current estimated market value, based on 3 recent Magnolia estate sales, between $782,000 and $815,000. Vanessa was right about one thing. The house had appreciated, but not because of velvet drapes. At 8:45 a.m., I called Margaret Ellis. Not my late wife, though she would have enjoyed this conversation, but Margaret Ellis, CPA. We've worked together since 2003. She handled the books when I sold Cunningham Industrial Supply. She answered on the second ring. Richard, this is early. Everything all right? I have a theoretical question, I said. She laughed softly. Your theoretical questions usually cost some money. I own a property, fully my name. Adult son and daughter-in-law reside there. I pay the mortgage. I fund improvements. Hypothetically, if I stopped funding improvements, what would happen? Silence. Paper shuffling. Legally, she asked. Yes. Nothing immediate. It's your property. If you stop paying discretionary upgrades, that's not their decision. If you stop paying the mortgage, I wouldn't. Then the bank forecloses. But as long as payments are current, you control the asset. Asset. I leaned back in the chair. Vanessa. Calls outdated. And if, I continued, I decided sell? Another pause. Then you sell, provided there's no lease agreement or co-ownership claim. There isn't. Then what's the real question, Richard? The real question. I looked around the kitchen. The quartz counters, the imported faucet. The wine cooler humming like a quiet accomplice. The real question, I said, is whether generosity can be revoked. Margaret didn't answer immediately. Finally, she said, generosity is not a contract. It's a choice. After I hung up, I printed the deed again. I don't know why. I've seen it 100 times. But the weight of paper matters. Owner, Richard Allen Cunningham. No secondary names. No life estate provisions. No survivorship clauses. When we closed in 2019, Daniel had been between ventures. His credit score hovered around 642. I had told him it would be cleaner this way, easier for financing. He had nodded. He always nods. At 10:12 a.m., Daniel came downstairs in athletic shorts and a t-shirt that said Hustle Daily. Morning, Dad. Morning. He poured almond milk into a glass. Organic. $6.99 per carton. I've been thinking, he said casually. Vanessa really wants to lock in the pool contractor before prices go up again. We might need the deposit soon. Might. How much is the deposit? I asked. 20%. So around 12 grand. $12,000. For excavation, he added. Daniel, I said evenly, how much did you contribute toward the kitchen renovation? He froze slightly. What do you mean? I mean financially. He leaned against the island, my island. I thought we agreed you were helping us get established. Established. You've been established here 4 years. That's not fair, he said quickly. We bring value to the house, too. Value? How? He hesitated. Lifestyle, he said finally. Energy. Social connections. Energy does not pay property taxes. At 11:03 a.m., my phone buzzed. Gulf Coast Savings. Large transaction attempted. Approval required. Amount, $11,870. Merchant, Blue Horizon Pools. Daniel's debit card. I had quietly adjusted the account permissions that morning. His access was limited to $2,000 per transaction. He looked down at his phone, frowned. Strange, he muttered. Card declined. I took a sip of coffee. Probably a fraud alert, I said calmly. He tried again. Declined. His jaw tightened. Dad, did something change with the account? I met his eyes. Yes. Silence stretched between us like a pulled wire. What do you mean, yes? He asked. I mean, I said carefully, that effective today, discretionary expenditures over $2,000 require my authorization. His face reddened. That's humiliating. Humiliating. You live in a $650,000 house financed entirely by your father. I said quietly. Humiliation is relative. He stared at me as if seeing something unfamiliar. You're overreacting because of what Vanessa said. I'm reacting to 4 years of arithmetic. He ran a hand through his hair. The same gesture he used at 12 when caught lying about a broken window. This feels controlling. Ownership often does. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Upstairs, I heard Vanessa moving. Cabinet doors opening. Music starting. Daniel lowered his voice. "You wouldn't sell the house," he said. It was not a question. I folded the printed deed and placed it back into the folder. "I haven't decided," I replied. But the truth had already begun settling into place. Not as anger, not as revenge, as balance. The ledger was no longer theoretical. It was active. And for the first time since May 14, 2019, I was the only one who understood that. Vanessa decided to host what she called a summer equity evening. The name alone should have warned me. It was the first Saturday in June. The air outside hung thick and damp, the kind that makes magnolia leaves shine like polished leather. Inside, the house glowed, candles everywhere. New velvet drapes. She had ordered them anyway. $12,460. Charged to the household account 2 days before I restricted it. The theme, apparently, was celebrating growth. I stood in the foyer at 6:58 p.m., adjusting my cufflinks. A gift from Margaret, my wife, on our 40th anniversary. Gold. Simple. Durable. Unlike trends. Guests began arriving at 7 sharp. Grant and Melissa, 2 couples from Magnolia Estates. Daniel's former business partner, Trevor, who now sells luxury timeshares. Everyone carried wine. No one carried a check. The living room furniture had been rearranged to showcase flow. The Italian sectional sat like a white monument to indulgence. The wine cooler hummed softly in its alcove, stocked for effect. Vanessa wore emerald silk. Dramatic. She moved through the room like a curator in her own gallery. At 7:40 p.m., she tapped her glass. "I just want to thank everyone for coming," she began, smiling wide. When Daniel and I moved in 4 years ago, this house had potential, but it took vision to turn it into what it is now. Vision. Polite applause. Daniel stood beside her, one hand in his pocket. He did not look at me. "We've invested so much into elevating this property," she continued, "and excited about the next phase, the pool installation this fall." There it was. Trevor raised his glass. To appreciation. Laughter. Vanessa's eyes swept the room, and then landed on me. "And of course," she added lightly, "we've had help. Richard's been supportive." Supportive. Like a folding chair. Something inside me settled. I walked to the hallway closet. The file box was exactly where I left it. When I returned to the living room, conversation had resumed. Someone was discussing real estate trends. Vanessa was explaining marble maintenance. I cleared my throat. No one heard. I did not raise my voice. "I think," I said evenly, "that since we're celebrating equity, we should look at actual numbers." Silence spreads faster than sound. Vanessa blinked. "Richard?" I placed the file box on the glass coffee table. Soft thud. Daniel went pale. I opened the first folder. Purchase date, May 14th, 2019. Sale price, $650,000. Down payment, $220,000. Wired from my personal account at 9:17 a.m. The room stilled. Grant shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa laughed lightly. "This isn't necessary." "It is," I said calmly. I removed another document. Mortgage, $3,842.16 per month. Auto-drafted from my account. 48 consecutive payments. Total paid to date, $184,423.68. Trevor stopped smiling. I continued. Kitchen renovation, $74,380. Landscaping, $26,413. Staircase upgrade, $18,200. Living room furnishings, $31,770. Additional improvements and fixtures totaling $32,600. I looked up. Total personal investment in this property to date, $587,786.68. You could hear the HVAC click on. Vanessa's face hardened. "What is the point of this performance?" Performance. "The point," I replied, "is ownership." I lifted the deed. Single page. Clean. Undeniable. Title holder. Richard Allen Cunningham. The words floated in the air like smoke. Melissa covered her mouth. Daniel stepped forward. Dad, not like this. Like what? I asked quietly. Accurately. Vanessa's voice sharpened. We live here. We've built this house into what it is. You've decorated, I corrected. Her eyes flashed. This is humiliating. Yes, I said softly. It is. For a moment, I considered stopping, letting it rest. But then I remembered the word. Useless. I reached into the folder and removed a final envelope. I met with my attorney on Thursday, I said. As sole owner of the property, I have the right to sell at any time. The house has been listed privately as of this morning at $829,000. A collective inhale. Daniel stared at me. You wouldn't. It is already in motion. Vanessa stepped forward, heels clicking against the hardwood I selected. You can't just uproot us. I can, I said calmly. And I have. I placed 2 sheets of paper on the coffee table. Formal notice of sale. 60 days to vacate upon closing. Estimated closing date, August 15th. Trevor looked at his shoes. Grant suddenly found great interest in the wine label. Vanessa's composure cracked. This is revenge, she hissed. No, I said. This is accounting. Daniel's voice broke slightly. Where are we supposed to go? I really looked at him. You are 47 years old, I said. You will figure it out. Silence again. Vanessa's face flushed deep crimson. You're doing this because I called you useless? I considered that. No, I replied. You called me useless because you believed I had no leverage. I closed the file box. This evening was about equity, I said. Now it is. I turned toward the kitchen. Behind me, I heard whispers. Shock, anger, panic. For the first time in 4 years, the house did not feel like a stage set. It felt like property, and I was done being decorative. The offer came in 12 days later. Full asking price, $829,000. Young couple, tech money, no children. They loved the designer flow and the wine alcove. Vanessa would have approved of them if they weren't replacing her. I received the call from my realtor, Diane, at 2:14 p.m. on a Tuesday. Richard, she said, her voice professionally neutral. They're willing to waive minor inspection contingencies. They want to close August 15th, as scheduled. I looked out at the magnolias. The afternoon light fell across the stone walkway Vanessa had insisted upon. For a moment, a brief, almost sentimental one, I imagined Margaret standing beside me. Well, I said, let's not keep them waiting. Daniel found out from the email notification. Subject line, executed purchase agreement. He came downstairs quickly, face pale, phone still in his hand. You signed, he asked. Yes. You didn't even talk to us. I presented the numbers publicly, I said. That was the discussion. Vanessa appeared behind him. She had stopped calling me useless. Now she called me unreasonable. This is cruel, she said. You're dismantling our stability. I folded the newspaper. Stability, I replied evenly, requires contribution. They had 60 days. I did not rush them. I did not raise my voice again. I simply stopped financing lifestyle. No new deliveries arrived. No contractors visited. The wine cooler gradually emptied. On July 3rd, Daniel asked quietly, what will you do with the money? I appreciated that he asked. After remaining mortgage payoff, approximately $386,000 of closing and fees, I expect net proceeds around $430,000, I said. Added to my existing reserves, I will be comfortable. Comfortable alone? Vanessa snapped. I looked at her. I was alone before you arrived. That silenced her. Packing began slowly, then frantically. It is astonishing how much vision fits into cardboard boxes. The velvet drapes were removed first. She tried to argue they were personal property. I handed her the invoice. Pay by me. She did not argue again. On August 15th at 9:30 a.m., we met at Gulf Title and Escrow. The office smelled like printer toner and burnt coffee. Fluorescent lights. Neutral carpet. No chandeliers. Daniel sat rigid in a gray chair. Vanessa scrolled her phone aggressively. I signed 27 pages without trembling. Wire confirmation arrived at 10:42 a.m. Mortgage balance. Paid in full. Account credit, $432,617.84. For years, condensed into a number. When we stepped into the parking lot, the air felt lighter than it had in months. So that's it? Daniel asked. That's it, I said. They had secured a 2-bedroom rental across town. Not Magnolia Estates, not coffered ceilings. Rent, $2,400 per month. Affordable, if one works. Vanessa did not look at me when she got into their SUV. Daniel lingered. I never thought you'd actually do it, he admitted. I know, I said. He swallowed. Were we really that bad? I considered lying. No, I answered. You were careless. There is a difference. He nodded slowly. I guess I thought it would always be there. Yes, I said quietly. You did. The house officially transferred at 3 p.m. I did not attend the buyer's walkthrough. Diane handled the keys. Instead, I drove 20 minutes north to a small gated community near the lake. 2 bedrooms, 1 study, 1,640 square feet. Purchase price, $312,000. No quartz waterfall island. No imported faucet. Just solid oak cabinets, the kind Margaret liked. I paid in full. Cash. The closing took 30 minutes. No applause. No velvet. That evening I sat on my new back porch with a simple folding chair and watched the sun lower over the water. Cicadas buzzed. The air smelled of grass and distant rain. My phone buzzed once. A text for Vanessa. I hope you're happy. I looked at the lake for a long time before responding. Then I typed, I am solvent, which at my age is close enough. Later that week, Melissa from Magnolia Estates called. We were shocked, she confessed. Vanessa made it sound like the house was theirs. It never was, I said. There was a pause. You must feel vindicated. I considered that. No, I replied. Just accurate. Accuracy is underrated. It does not shout. It does not humiliate. It balances. The new owners repainted the navy dining room within a week, removed the wine alcove, installed a modest garden instead of a plunge pool. I drove by once. Just once. The house looked peaceful. I did not stop. Back at my lake house, I installed beige curtains. They look perfectly fine. Sometimes in the morning, when I wake at 6:10 a.m., I think about the word she used. Useless. It no longer echoes. Because a useless man does not walk away with $500,000 in equity. A useless man does not control the ledger. A useless man does not know the difference between decoration and ownership.